Today I'm going to teach you Slay the Spire, the board game. Now I'm using the Collector's Edition, which I got from the Kickstarter, so I may have some components that look different from the non-Collector's Edition, but the rules will be the same, and you'll be able to play the game. So let's open it up and learn how to play. Now I'm not going to go over the components in the game and everything, I'm just going to get straight into the rules. Because if you have the game, you just want to know how to play, not necessarily what comes in the box. I'll put the components at the end. This game can be played solitaire or with up to 3 other players, so it's a 1 to 4 player game, and the first thing you do is pick a character. The first thing each player does is chooses a character and takes the corresponding player board, mini, the starter deck of that character, indicated by a gray border on the card, and the inner border matching the character color. For this video, I'm choosing the ironclad red. Then you will also gather up the rewards deck for your cards and the rare rewards deck, which has a gold border. Regular rewards are a black border. Then you will shuffle all of those decks, not together. This one will be face down and this one will be face down. Then you will prepare the token tray, and then when setting up your player board, you'll put a token on the 3 spot for energy, the 0 spot for block, and then your highest possible HP will also get a cube. And then, and this part looks a little demanding on the table for how much is here, but you're going to get the decks ready. First, you'll take out the following decks: Encounter Act 1, First Encounter, Encounter Act 1, Elite Act 1, the Summon Act 1, which you do not shuffle, Event Act 1, the Relic deck, the Potion deck, the Boss Relic deck, the Daze deck, the Status deck, and the Curse deck. They are gray border with a black interior. Now, you will take out the following decks. You will shuffle each deck except Summons, Daze, and Status, and place them in separate piles. Shuffle and keep the first encounter cards separate from the encounter deck. Remember, don't shuffle the Summons, don't shuffle the Daze, and don't shuffle the Status deck. And then you will choose a board. You will randomly choose an Act 1 map. Then you'll prepare your map tokens. You'll shuffle the map tokens face down, randomly place dark map tokens on dark spaces and light map tokens on light spaces. Then you'll flip the tokens up. And the map will look like some sort of variance of this. Then you will place the character on the lowest open space. Then you'll randomly choose a boss. To do this, you just take the Act 1 bosses and then you roll the die and use the boss with the matching die result on the back of the card, which we rolled a 3, so the Hexaghost is going to be our boss. Then you'll take that boss face down on the map on top of the icon up here. Then you'll place the boot, and you will place the boot meeple at the bottom of the map next to the bottom encounter of this little face. Then you can make sure to keep the player reference board handy for quick rules references, which when you encounter a merchant, this money bag symbol, this actually flips over and you can set up the marketplace. Then you will take the Niao's Blessing. Shuffle the Niao's Blessing deck, the 3-eyed whale. Each player draws 1 Niao's Blessing card. Gain the reward in red, then choose one of the 3 rewards in blue. Those rewards are listed on page 8. We'll also go over them later in the video, if you have your rulebook handy. When players are done, put all the Niao's Blessing cards away. Now, if you're playing solo, also gain the loaded die and 2 coins. And finally, you'll set up your first encounter, which, if you have your rulebook handy, is on page 10, Combat Setup, and then you start combat. It will be later on in this video. I'll have timestamps in the description. Now, before we continue regarding setups for Acts 2 and 3, you'll first replace the Act decks. Again, not shuffling the Summons, but you'll take the 3 other decks, shuffle them, and replace them with their appropriate Act. And you will not shuffle the Summons from the future Act as well. And a special note that only Act 1 has a first encounter deck. And then, if you reach Act 2 or 3, You will follow steps 5 through 9 with the board and boss for the next act. And again, those steps just really quick. We're setting up the board, the map tokens, your character figure, you reveal the boss, and then you place the boot. If you move on to a new act, your character will heal to their maximum amount of health. And then you will regather and shuffle your rewards deck, including the cards that you skipped. You do not shuffle the rare deck, though, but you will shuffle your rewards again. And now we're going to go over how to set up your play area. It is just a suggestion, so you will do what works best for you. But first, you will do your draw pile. Now, you'll shuffle your deck before combat begins to create your draw pile. So anytime there's combat, you're going to shuffle this. After you play a card, it will go to your discard pile. When you exhaust a card, which means you cannot use it again for the rest of combat, it will go to your exhaust pile. And then up above all that, you have your item area. Items are small cards. Keep items you gain in front of you. And then not present on this play mat, so anywhere that you really feel comfortable with is your power area. When you play a power, which the cards will denote right here if it's a power, it will stay in play until the end of combat. Keep the powers near you or in front of you or wherever works, but they will be returned to your deck at the end of combat. Here we have your HP, that's your hit points. When your character takes damage or loses HP, your HP goes down. When you heal, it goes up. Keep a red cube on your HP to track it. Your HP starts at the highest number on your player board. Damage can be prevented with block. And block is the little blue shield. You have a maximum of 20 block for players. You prevent the next 1 damage to a player or enemy for each point of block they have. After damage is prevented, remove that much block. Players use their player board to track block, while enemies use tokens. Block does not prevent lose X HP effects. A player's block is removed at the start of a player's turn. An enemy block is removed at the start of the enemy turn. So although it goes to 10 here, you have a maximum of 20 total for players. I say max 20 total for players, but the word total is not in here, so just max 20 for players. Since I'm going through the rulebook, this may change when I get to combat, and we'll actually know the answer. Either way, I will go over this section again later on in the video. Then, each character also has a starting ability. Each character has a unique starting ability on their player board. This one is End of Combat, heal 1 HP. Then you can keep your tokens for your character on your player board or nearby. Keep track of your gold, any buffs, debuffs this way. You may prefer to keep weakness and vulnerable tokens near your character mini. Now, it may be a little redundant to go over these twice because I will be going over the abilities and keywords later, but this is weak. You have a max of 3. Add a weakness token to the target up to a limit of 3 per player or enemy. When a player or enemy with 1 or more weakness tokens attacks, each hit, this little red sword, in the attack or enemy action deals -1 damage. Then, 1 weakness token is removed. For area of effect attacks, this little explosion, example, area of effect damage 1, or multi-hit attacks, an example of a multi-hit here being 1 damage then 1 damage, they still only lose a single weakness. And this is vulnerable. There's a max of 3. You add a vulnerable token to the target up to a limit of 3 per player or enemy. When a player or enemy with 1 or more vulnerable tokens is attacked, damage from each hit in the attack or enemy action is doubled. Then the target loses 1 vulnerable token. You'll add damage bonuses like strength before doubling. And we'll go over area of effect, multi-hit, and strength and other things later. Now we will go over the meat and potatoes of your character, your deck. There are several card types, but we'll go over the breakdown of a card. First, up here you have the energy cost. Then here you have the name. And then you have the card type right here. And then the text of what the card does. This card here is an attack card. Attack cards deal damage to enemies. Then there are skill cards. Skill cards block damage and have other useful abilities. Then there are power cards. Powers give you abilities that last the entire combat. Powers stay on the table in front of the player until the end of combat when they are returned to your deck. Then there are curses. Curses are bad cards that can get added to your deck. Curses can't be transformed, which we'll go over later. When you gain a curse, add the top curse card to your deck. Then there are status and daze cards. Powerful enemies can weaken your deck by adding status and daze cards to it. Remove these cards from your deck at the end of every combat. Then you have your energy, which energy looks different in symbol for each of the 4 characters. Energy is used to play cards. You have a maximum of 6 energy at once. Each character has their own energy icon, although they all mean the same thing. You can gain energy from sources with icons that don't match your character. You usually see the swirly red ball here used to mean energy on items and in the rules. And then you have X cost cards. You can spend any amount of energy when playing an X cost card, including 0. It has an effect based on how much energy you spend. The text will tell you the effect for spending X energy. Now, going over the banner and the rarity. Cards have different rarities, which you can tell by the color of the banner behind their name. Gray banners are common, and starter have a gray border along with a gray banner. Non-starter commons have a gray banner, black border. Blue banner cards are uncommon, and yellow banner cards are rare. And now we'll go over item cards. Items are small cards that you'll collect on your adventure. There are relics, boss relics, and potions. There's also the loaded die solo relic. Keep the items out in front of you. The way the loaded die works is when playing solo, start with the loaded die. On a 6, it can trigger its own 4 or 5 ability, or a die relic ability on another relic. Going over the dissection of an item card's breakdown here. First, you have the name up top, the text of what it does, and the gold cost. This is the cost to purchase the item from the merchant, which is the little money bag symbol on the map when you show up to the merchant. Not all items have a gold cost. And now we're going to talk about the juicy aspect of winning combat and other things, rewards. There's several types of rewards, but first, some general rules about the rewards. The pick order is pick rewards in any order you want. Skipping is also allowed. You may skip gaining any reward, and you may also skip revealing or drawing from the rewards deck. And there's also full knowledge for you. After revealing cards or items, you can look at what the other rewards are from that combat before making any final decisions on what to choose or skip. You can check upgrades if you're even unsure if you'll get to see another combat reward from your current room before finalizing a choice. The answer is yes. Regarding trading, only potions can be traded outside of combat. Nothing else can be traded. The first type of reward to look out for is your card reward. And what you'll do with that is you will reveal the top 3 cards from your reward deck and lay them out in front of you. You may add 1 revealed card to your deck, or skip adding a card. Return any unselected cards to the bottom of your card rewards deck. The next type of reward is going to look like the card reward, but with an up arrow. This is an upgraded card reward. Now, how that works is just like a card reward above, but the card you pick is immediately upgraded. So, you can always look for what an upgrade does before choosing. So out of these cards, if we were having them before us and I wanted to choose Twin Strike instead of Shrug It Off, the way that these sleeves matter now is visible, because you actually upgrade the card, and on the back you have the upgraded version, which has green text in the name. And like it said, you can look at the other ones to see what they do before you choose. Then there's also the rare reward, which, just like the other card reward, is you'll take the top 3 from your rare card deck, and you will choose one of them. The rest go to the bottom of your deck after you have chosen. Another type of reward is the potion, and those cards are right here. So the way that it works is you draw a card from the potion deck. You may gain that potion or skip it. Keep it face up in front of you until it's used. You cannot have more than 3 potions. Potions are single-use items. When a potion is used, discarded, or skipped, put it on the bottom of the potion deck. If you gain a potion but you're at your limit, you must either skip the potion, pass the potion to a player who is below their portion limit, or discard or use the potion then gain the new potion. Gambler's Brew, Entropic Brew, Blood Potion, and Fairy in a Bottle can be used outside of combat if applicable. And again, because the text tells you what they can do, just going over one more time which ones can be used outside of combat. Gambler's Brew, Entropic Brew, Blood Potion, and Fairy in a Bottle. The next type of reward is Relic. So how a Relic works is that you draw a card from the Relic deck. You may gain that Relic or skip it. Keep your relics face up in front of you. When relics are discarded or skipped, put them on the bottom of the relic deck. There is no limit to how many relics you can have. Then you've got your boss relic. Now the way boss relics work is you'll reveal one boss relic per player plus one. Unless you're playing solo, you'll reveal 3. Each player may gain a relic or skip. Keep your boss relics face up in front of you. When boss relics are discarded or skipped, return them to the bottom of the boss relic deck. And then you have gold, which in this example there's 2 inside of a gold coin. You'll gain gold tokens equal to the total value. Gold can be spent at the merchant or certain events. You can use your gold to pay for any amount of another player's purchase at the merchant or event. There are 3 other rewards that can change your deck. First is Remove, which removes a card from your deck. Keep it removed in a pile away from your deck. And when you remove a card from your deck, it's your deck. You pick which card gets removed, unless text or something tells you otherwise, like remove the top card of your deck. Then there's Upgrade. To do that, you'll unsleeve a card in your deck and flip it to the upgraded side, which has green text. I can't do that with one hand. Ta-da! You can check what a card's upgrade is at any time before unsleeving it or checking the upgrade reference. Which in my copy of the game, the upgrade reference is this little booklet here that goes over the items and upgrades for cards. Then there's Transforming a card. You'll remove a card from your deck that isn't a curse. You'll keep it in a removed pile away from your deck, and then you'll add the top card of your card's rewards to your deck. It should be random. So, I have my deck face up for this video, so we'll just take... Here we go. Well, I got a golden ticket. Which in this case, this was not planned. If it's the golden ticket, you'll add the top card of your rare rewards from your deck instead, then put the golden ticket on the bottom of your card's rewards. So, in this case, we got Feed. And now we will go over the map. You start at the encounter, which is this little face here, at the bottom of the map. When you're done with the room, move the meeple up the map along one of the paths to the next room. We'll go over what each symbol means now. Exclusive to Act 1 is the first encounter. If this is the first encounter, place a first encounter card in each player's row. And we'll go over combat setup as well. After combat, set aside the first encounter cards because they're no longer needed. And then, when you get to another encounter card, you'll draw an encounter card per player and set it up just like the first encounter. This here is an Elite. You'll draw a card from the Elite deck and set it up just like the first encounter. Next up, you have the question mark. That is an event. You'll draw a card from the event deck. If there is text in yellow bracketing, each player must choose one of those options. Each player makes their own choice and acts once in any order. Some events work differently as described in their text. In this case, paying. Before you choose to do that, you must first have what it's asking for you to pay or give. When all players are done, put that event on the bottom of the event deck. Then you have your campfire. Each player chooses one of 2 actions. Rest, that would be heal 3 hit points, or Smith, which is upgrade a card. Then you have Treasure, which is each player gains a relic. Then you have your Merchant, a little money bag. Now the way the Merchant works is you'll place 3 relics and 3 potions on the Merchant board in their indicated spots. Then, each player reveals the top 3 cards of their rewards deck. And keep in mind, that you can use your gold to pay for any amount of another player's purchase at a merchant or event. So players can buy items, they can buy a relic or potion for the gold cost at the bottom right of that item. The relic in the top left is on sale for 1 less gold. And for the sake of the example, I just changed one of the cards here, but you can buy your cards that you revealed for 2, 3, or 6 based on their rarity. Gray banner cards are common for 2 gold, blue banner cards are uncommon for 3 gold, and yellow banner cards are 6 for rares. You can also do a card removal service. You pay 3 gold to remove a card from your deck. Each player can only do this once per merchant. When you're done, return any unpurchased cards to the bottom of the deck that they came from in any order. And then finally on the map is the boss. That's this symbol here, which is covered up by the boss that you drew. When you reach the boss, start combat against the boss card at the top of the map. See combat setup in this video or page 10 of your rulebook. If the boss is defeated, you beat that act. After gaining any rewards, you can save and continue later, or proceed to the next act, going back to setup, or you can just end the game there. Now let's talk about combat setup. First off with the rows. Each player has a row, and enemies are placed in rows except for bosses. Some enemies have summons, and this is why you don't shuffle your summon deck, because it makes them easier to find. When you see this green bar and the summon icon, you will search the summon deck for that enemy in the summon deck and put them into play at the start of combat. Some enemy actions or special abilities can also summon. Now, regarding random summons. When multiple summons have the same name, select them randomly. You can do this by picking one without reading its abilities or shuffling summons with the same name in a small face-down pile and drawing one. Gremlins have a gremlin icon on the back to help select them randomly. Now, setting up your actual encounter is you place one enemy in each player's row. If there were summons, they are placed in the row of the enemy that summoned them to the right. Now we'll break down an enemy card. First up in the top left, you have the rewards. Then you have the name. Then you have the starting hit points. Put a cube on the numbers with yellow outlines. Like so. Then you have the enemy action. Then you have their special ability. And then you have their summons. So this combat setup would look like this, with the proper cubes. 11 plus hit points examples. Some monsters have more than 10 hit points. Use 2 cubes. So in this case, this one would start at 12. So when you get down to 11, 10, and you drop down to 9, this cube would go away. Now we'll break down an elite card with special abilities. Special abilities appear in yellow. Usually they're always active, but some have triggers or don't have an effect until later in the fight. For example, the Fungi Beast's special ability is Spore Cloud. It only triggers when it dies. Fungi, I don't know. I say fungi. And down here, the Enraged ability on the Gremlin knob is after you play a skill, you take 1 damage, but it does not start until the second round of combat. And we'll be able to figure that out once we break down combat. But now, looking at these hit points, what does that mean? Well, let's get into the elite setup. You place 1 elite on the bottom row. If there are summons, place them in each of the player's rows with the elite to their right. So for this example here, the elite would go on the right, and you have these here. Now some enemies will use the HP board. Their HP is formatted like this. The top number is their starting HP for 1 player. The next number is 2 players, etc., etc. And you set up using the HP cubes. So you'd have 14 for 1 player, and 56 for 4. Now setting up the boss is a little different. Bosses are treated as being in all rows simultaneously. Keep them to the right of the board with any summons in rows closer to the board itself. Then you set up their HP, going off of the players like an elite, and here's an example of what one with summons would look like on the board. And then you have their list of actions. Now let's talk the combat round. Player turn. Combat rounds consist of a player turn followed by an enemy turn. Rounds repeat until combat ends. So, the first thing you'll do is shuffle your deck before combat starts. There's one shared player turn that's broken into phases. Start of turn, play, end of turn. All players will take these steps simultaneously. At the start of your turn, the first thing you'll do is reset. Set your energy to 3 and your block to 0. Then you will draw 5 cards. There is no maximum hand size. Now, in the situation of an empty draw pile when you need to draw cards, you'll take your discard pile and it'll become your new draw pile. First, you'll shuffle it. If a card was played that let you draw cards, that card will actually be set aside. You'll shuffle it and place it face down and draw the cards you need to draw. Then you will roll the die. If any abilities can change the die result, they must be used now before resolving other abilities. The die result tells you what actions some monsters will take later during the enemy turn and which relic abilities are about to trigger. One die result determines all die effect of the rounds. Don't roll it again until the next round. Then you have your start of turn abilities. The following abilities will trigger in any order players choose. Start of turn. Abilities that have start of turn or start of round text. Start of combat texts. These abilities only trigger on the first turn of combat. Then you have die relic abilities. Those will trigger on the indicated die result. And then you move on to the play phase. Players can play cards, use potions, activate abilities in any order they choose. Discussion is encouraged. Players can discuss strategy, such as which enemies to attack, which players need help. It is encouraged to announce if you have weak or vulnerable effects early in the turn, as well as to ask questions like, how much damage do you have in your hand? Or do you have enough block, rather than look at a player's hand? Now, to play a card, you'll pay the energy cost in the upper left of the card, and you'll track energy on your board. Then you'll choose to make any decisions as targets for the card. You can target an enemy with your effect. Any of them, in fact. And effects with an explosion symbol, seen right here, denotes an area of effect, and all enemies in one row, and always affects the boss. Enemies have it too. Cards can be considered being played. While the card is being played, it isn't in your hand or your discard pile. Resolving. Execute the card's printed effects from top to bottom. Any abilities triggered by the card don't take effect until after the card is finished, resolving all of its text. And then you have your cleanup. The card goes to your discard pile. If it's a power, instead remember to place it up in front of you. If it has exhausts, it goes to your exhaust pile. And note that days and status effects exhaust to the deck they came from. And then, when players are done playing cards and using their abilities and things, the following things occur. First is the end of turn abilities, like this Orichalcum relic here. At the end of turn, 1 block if you don't have any block. And again, those will trigger in any order you choose if you have multiple. The phrase end of turn only refers to the player's turn, not the end of the enemy turn. And then you will discard the rest of the cards in your hand in any order. And now we will get into the enemy turn. The enemy turn is broken into phases. First, they remove their enemy block, then their enemy actions, then move cube actions. The first thing you will do is remove enemy block. Enemies lose all of their leftover block at the start of their turn. And then you get into the enemy actions. Starting with the highest row, enemies act left to right, taking 1 action each. Then enemies in the next row down act left to right. This continues until all enemies in all rows have acted at once. Bosses always act last. Enemies that say acts last act after other enemies. There are different types of enemy actions that we'll go over. Then you have your move cube actions. If an enemy uses cube actions, which we will get into, slide their cube down to the next track, then combat repeats. And now let's get into the enemy action types. First, because these enemies are out, we'll go to the die action. The enemy takes the action indicated on the right of the die result. We had rolled a 5, so this enemy would gain 2 strength. Then this enemy would have an area of effect that would damage all players in combat. Oops, killed my ironclad here. And it would do 1 damage. And then it would gain a strength. There are also single actions. This enemy takes the listed action every turn. Then there's the cube action. At the start of combat, put a cube on the top cube slot. The enemy takes that action to the right of cube during enemy actions phase. During the move cube actions phase, slide the cube down the track. When it reaches the bottom of the track, move the cube to the topmost red cube slot. Gray cube slots are not repeated. So for example, this Lagavulin, which isn't that like a liquor of some kind, it starts off with sleeping and then it goes down here. They'll say 3 enemy rounds passed. It would not go back up to the gray. It would just be awake for the rest of combat and do that. And that's how you could tell how the goblin knobs or gremlin knob is enraged, is it starts with the gray and then goes to the enraged. Then there's the dead. When enemies are reduced to 0 hit points, they are dead and lose their tokens. Flip them over until the end of combat. When a player dies, the game immediately ends in defeat. It is any player. So if you're playing with multiples and one of them bites the dust, the game is over. And now we will talk about the end of combat. Combat ends immediately when all monsters are dead or have left combat, unless an enemy had an on-death ability that's going to summon an enemy at the end of combat. You will do first end of combat abilities. Abilities that say end of combat trigger now. Then you'll get to your rewards. Players gain rewards on the upper left of the enemy's card. Again, that's page 8 in the rulebook, and we went over rewards earlier. In encounters, gain rewards from the enemy in the row you ended combat in. In boss and elite fights, all players gain those rewards. Summons most often do not have awards. Or rewards, if you're going for rewards, because I don't believe any enemy has an award. Well, no, there are achievements. We'll get into those later. Then you will reset your deck. Return your powers, your discard pile, and your exhaust pile to your deck. Remove any status or dazed cards, and put them back in their respective decks. And then you'll reset your player board. Reset your block to 0, your energy back up to the energy, and then you lose all tokens like strength, vulnerable, weak, and shivs, etc., except for gold. You don't lose your gold. The defect removes all orbs. The watcher enters neutral stance. Those would be explained in those characters. Then you clear the enemies. You put the encounter enemies on the bottom of their deck, elite enemies on the bottom of their respective decks, and summons just get returned to the summon stack. This thing looks like from Land of the Lost, a slee stack or whatever those are called. And then you can switch rows. Players can switch rows anytime before the next combat, but if you're solo, you're stuck down here. Now talking about actions and effects. Most of them are explained on the back of the rulebook itself. I'll go over a couple here, but the icons of the, looks like prayer hands, a little shiv, and then the poison skull, they are explained on page 17 of the rulebook, and I will explain that later in the video. There's a lot of examples here. I'm not just going to explain each one completely. Well, maybe I will. We'll see. I mean, this part is really, I don't want to dig through cards for visual examples, so player effect examples. Dealing a damage. Multiple attacks. Deal 1 damage to an enemy, deal 1 damage to the same enemy. Then 2 damage and a vulnerable. Deal 2 damage to the enemy, give them a vulnerable token. Area of effect 3. Deal 3 damage to all enemies in a row, and the boss if it's present. Area of effect, poison, weakness. Put a poison token, a weakness token on all enemies in a row, and the boss if it's present. Then there's a giant list of enemy actions, like dealing damage, gaining a block, dealing damage, gaining a strength, dealing damage, applying vulnerable. Area of effect, 2 damage, then 2 more damage, and then a weakness, then a daze, and then area of effect and 2 burn statuses, and then area of effect and this swirly green thing. I think it's confusion, but this is what it would do. And going over multi-hits. Some attacks have multiple hits on the same card, like Twin Strike. Some cards will say things like deal X damage for each hit, like Finisher or Barrage. Some enemy actions have multiple hits in one action. All of these are examples of multi-hit. All hits on multi-hit have the same target unless stated otherwise. All hits on a multi-hit are affected equally by any damage bonuses, such as from strength. Then, all hits on a multi-hit are affected equally by weakness or vulnerability. Remove one weakness or vulnerability token when the entire multi-hit is complete, with weak, and each hit has its damage reduced. For this example here, the Ironclad plays Twin Strike against a cultist with a vulnerable token. The Twin Strike deals double damage, so it would be 2 and then 2 for a total of 4 damage. Then the vulnerable token is removed. Now, when it comes to targeting for players, remember that players can target any enemy. Effects with the area of effect icon, or that say any row, target all enemies in a single row. They would also affect the boss. Regarding target for enemies, enemies target the player in their row. Enemy effects with the area of effect target all players. Some bosses have different modes, like the Guardian, for example. The enemy can only use actions and abilities from the mode it's currently in. The Guardian starts in attack mode. When the Guardian enters defensive mode, move the cube from the first action to the new mode. Now, going over the characters, we have first off the Ironclad. The remaining soldier of the Ironclads sold his soul to harness demonic energies. Strength is his specialty, has a max of 8. The Ironclad has many ways to gain strength. A player can have a maximum of 8 strength. You deal +1 damage for each hit for each strength token you have. And remember, enemies can also gain strength and will do that to you. Exhaust. The Ironclad has many ways to exhaust cards and synergies with exhaust. See the back of the rulebook for more exhaust information. And then extra hit points. The Ironclad starts with more hit points than any other character. And as you can see here, the other characters are more complicated. We have the Defect, a combat automaton which became self-aware. Ancient technology allows manipulation of orbs. Channeling. So, when the Defect channels an orb, place an orb of that type in an open orb slot on the player board. You would not use the hit point tokens for that. Your Defect bag would have the various colors that you need. So when you channel an orb, you'll place an orb of that type in an open orb slot on the player board. Yellow is lightning, blue is frost, purple is dark. If a card channels more than multiple orbs, channel them one at a time. If you channel an orb and don't have any more cubes, ignore that effect. And then at the end of turn. At the end of turn, gain the end of turn effect for each lightning or frost orb shown on the Defect player board. Choose the targets for lightning orbs. And it tells you right there what they do. Now, when you evoke an orb, you remove an orb of your choice from its slot and apply the evoke effect for that type of orb as written on the Defect player board. If you play a dual cast, evoke that orb twice. Each lightning orb and dark orb evoke effect can have a different target. Now, say your orb slots are full. If you channel an orb and all orb slots are full, evoke any orb. Then place the channeled orb in its slot. When multiple orbs are channeled at once, resolve the effect of each orb one at a time. And we won't get into how they're different from the video game because we're playing the card game here, but there is a section there if you want. Then you have the Silent, a deadly huntress from the Foglands. Eradicates foes with daggers and poisons. Poison is her specialty. Place the poison token, right there, on a target for each poison icon in the effect. At the end of turn, enemies with poison lose 1 hit point per poison token they have. Losing HP ignores block. Poison doesn't deal damage. Don't remove poison tokens from any enemy until they are dead. There can't be more than 30 poison tokens combined on all enemies. The other specialty is Shivs. Shivs are tokens that may be used to deal 1 damage whenever you could play a card. Each Shiv is treated as a separate attack and is affected separately by strength, vulnerable, weak, and other effects that would affect attacks. You start combat with 0 Shiv tokens and gain Shiv tokens from cards with the Shiv icon. They don't go away until they are used or the end of combat. You can use them immediately or save them up for a combo. Note that if you're out of Shiv tokens and you gain a Shiv, you can deal Shiv damage immediately or skip gaining the Shiv. Shivs do not count as cards. And finally, out of the player characters, we have the Watcher, a blind ascetic who has come to evaluate the Spire. Master of the Divine Stances. These aren't prayer tokens, they're miracle tokens. You have a maximum of 5. Miracle tokens can be used any time to gain an energy. You can't have more than 5 at once. Gain miracle tokens from cards and abilities with the miracle icon. Your starting ability gives you a miracle token, and you can use miracles to go over the energy limit of a maximum of 6 if they are immediately used to pay for a card. Specialties include scry and retaining. The back of the rulebook would explain what scry and retain means, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Then there are stances. Start each combat in neutral stance, and that is trackable on their player board. Then you have Wrath. While you're in Wrath, you deal +1 damage on all hits. This effectively is the same of having a permanent +1 strength. This bonus only lasts until you leave Wrath. If you end your turn in Wrath, take a damage. Reminder that damage cannot be blocked. Then you also have Calm. When you leave Calm, gain 2 energy. And it is self-explanatory on their player board. So, she is always one that I've had a lot of trubs with in the video game. And since you don't need the frequently asked questions and random rules to play the game, you'll have to discover those interactions on your own, or just jump to pages 18 and 19 from the book for very specific situations or frequently asked questions. Now, regarding cards, tokens, and stuff from other characters. You can use tokens from other characters the same way they do. The token limit remains the same, but it's shared between all players. When you transform a card from another player's character or colorless card, add the new card from the top of your character's card reward deck. If you're to reveal a golden ticket from another character's deck, that reward becomes a rare from their rare rewards pile. If you gain the ability to enter stances or use orbs from another character, gain the Prismatic Shard special relic. Start each combat in neutral stance. The defect doesn't gain more orb slots this way, and the watcher can't enter stances on the prismatic cards. Sometimes you will play copies of your cards. This is pretty simple. When a card is played multiple times, the copy is treated as a separate card. Copies do not cost energy to play. If the card has an X energy cost, the copies use the same value of X as the original. Each copy can have different targets and is affected separately by vulnerable and weak and single-use bonuses. Copies also cannot be copied. A card can only be affected by one effect that plays cards multiple times. If any additional effects would play a card multiple times, wait for the next valid card. For example, if you use 2 skill potions, then play a skill, it is played twice. The second skill potion has no effect until you play another skill. The copies are always played first. While copies are being played, the original is not in your hand or in your discard pile. When the original resolves, it goes to your discard pile. So for example, in double attack, your next attack is played twice. You play a strike, it is played 2 times, with the copy being resolved first, then that. Now to quickly go over triggered abilities. Some abilities don't have an effect until a certain condition trigger is met. Examples are on death abilities. When an enemy with this ability dies, the ability triggers. Start of turn. Relics and powers with this phrase trigger at the start of the player turn. Note that enemy turn does not have a start of turn phase. Start of combat abilities are like start of turn, but they only trigger on turn 1 of combat. Then you have at the start of next round. This refers to start of turn phase during the next player turn. Then there's the end of turn abilities. Relics and powers with this phase trigger at the end of the player turn. Note that enemy players do not have an end of turn phase. End of combat. These abilities trigger at the end of combat. Once per combat. These abilities can only be used once per combat. Use them any time during the player turn. Once used, flip the item face down. Flip it face up again after combat. Once per room abilities, found on items that can only be used once per combat or event. They typically alter the die result, so can affect events that use the die. Once used, flip them over. Flip it face up after the combat or when the party is done with the event. Then you have the die relic abilities. These abilities trigger on a die result at the start of turn. The abilities are only found on relics and boss relics. Now to quickly go over unlocks, ascension, achievements, and the daily climb. Whenever you finish a game, each player checks 1 box per boss defeated, plus 1 extra box each. You must check boxes for your character until they are all checked, after which you may check colorless or Act 4 boxes. When you check all of the boxes next to a lock, add the locked cards to a matching number of 1, 2, or 3 on the padlock to the appropriate decks. Now, this just helps keep the difficulty level and the understanding of the game lower, and more advanced stuff gets added to the game as you unlock it. Regarding the Ascension, after you defeat an Act 2 boss, Act 3 if you're playing solo, you unlock what is called Ascension Mode. Again, it's a difficulty modifier. To unlock higher Ascensions, you must be playing with the modifiers of all previous Ascension levels and defeat an Act 2 boss, Act 3 if you're solo. You don't have to play on the highest Ascension you've achieved, although you may need to revert changes to some decks to play on lower Ascension levels. And I would just encourage to print, scan, or copy this of some way so you're not just writing in this rulebook, but that's just me. I don't like doing that to my stuff. Then you have achievements, which you can also keep track of, which, when certain things happen, such as playing 7 shivs in a turn, you can keep track of the achievements. It's just a fun little thing to do. And it'll also provide different challenges. Beat Act 3 with no relics or boss relics. Getting rid of your starting relic is difficult, so that one's hard to get. Then you've got your daily climb. It's an optional game mode. You can play a daily climb, you roll the die, you can go to this chart, and you can roll the die twice and gain 1 random game modifier from each section below. All players are affected. And then you can just do a custom run. Instead of rolling, pick whatever modifiers you want from the list. Now, there is a 4th act to the game, but Act 4 must be unlocked, and you can go back to the unlock list on how to do that. To enter Act 4, you must obtain all 3 keys at the end of Act 3. The Act 4 map is on the back of the Act 4 boss card. To obtain a key, like the Ruby key, all players must simultaneously take no action in a campfire room. To obtain the Sapphire key, all players must simultaneously skip gaining a relic at an elite or treasure room. Players may reveal the relic before deciding discarded relics if you gain the key. Discard the relics if you gain the key. In the Emerald key, players must defeat the Burning Elite, which is a special elite that unlocks later. When you fight a Burning Elite before combat begins, each player shuffles 2 burns into their deck. Before the map setup, replace an encounter token, the regular little head, with a dark black with a Burning Elite token. If you gain the Emerald key, replace the Burning Elite token back with the encounter for future acts. And this is what that counter will look like. It is not in the mix of counters at the beginning unless you're going for the Act 4 stuff. Now that you know everything you need to know to play, I will just guide you to page 22 of the rulebook, which has a quick start guide. There's also the golden rule. This applies to almost every card game I've played. Whenever a card's text contradicts the rules, the card takes precedence. Then there's some optional rules which you can take place here. I'll leave that for you to pause if you want. I won't go over them because, again, that's on page 23 of the actual rulebook. Then you've got the credits of the fine people that made this game. And finally, on the how to play, we'll just quickly go over the abilities and keywords. This is on page 24 of the rulebook if you have it, and I will leave it here if you want to screenshot it and print out a weird blurry, should be closer screenshot. But anyway, I'll just read them off real quick. You have the area of effect. For players, everything that follows this symbol affects all enemies in a single row and always includes the boss. For enemies, everything that follows this symbol affects every player unless the enemy is gaining strength or block. All enemies. The effect targets all enemies in every row, always includes the boss. Block. Maximum of 20 for players. Prevent the next 1 damage to a player for each point of block they have. After the damage is prevented, remove that much block. Players use their player board to track block while enemies use tokens. Block does not prevent lose X HP effects. A player's block is removed at the start of the player turn. An enemy's block is removed at the start of an enemy turn. Daze. Put a Daze card on top of your draw pile. Then return the Daze to the card deck that it came from when it is exhausted. You have your energy and the different symbols. Your max is 6. Energy is usually represented by the swirly ball of fire symbol on cards. Ethereal. At the start of a turn, if this card is in your hand, exhaust it. Exhausting. An exhausted card is removed from your deck. Keep exhausted cards in a separate pile and return them to the deck at the end of combat. Daze and status go to the respective decks when exhausted. Hit. The little sword. The hit deals damage equal to the number in front of them. Hits are affected by vulnerable, weak, and strength. See multi-hit attacks on page 14, or when we get to multi-hit attacks in this description. And multi-hit attacks actually are not on this list, so multi-hit attacks would be number, sword, number, sword, number, sword. That's 3 hits that do that much damage. Retain. Retained cards are not discarded at the end of a player turn. Some cards have a bonus if you retain them. After such cards leave your hand, they forget they were ever retained. Scry X. Look at the top X card of your deck, where scry is the number is after the word scry. You may discard any number of them, then put any remaining cards back on top of your deck in the same order. You can't scry more cards than there are in your draw pile. Scrying has no effect if your draw pile is empty. Then you have your status cards. Status cards use the top or bottom effect, whichever icon is in the enemy that gave it to you. The other effect is ignored that combat. Put them back on their respective piles or on top of your discard pile. Sorry, you would put them on top of your discard pile when you gain them, and they go to their respective decks when exhausted. Then you have your strength, max of 8, plus 1 damage for each hit for each strength token you have. Enemies also gain it. Unplayable. Cards with unplayable cannot be played and do not have an energy cost. If an effect attempts to play an unplayable card, like Distilled Chaos, that card has no effect and is discarded. Vulnerable, maximum of 3. Add a vulnerable token to the target up to a limit of 3 per player or enemy. When a player or enemy with vulnerable tokens is attacked, damage from each hit in the attack or enemy action is doubled. Then the target loses 1 vulnerable token. Add damage bonuses like strength before doubling. And along with that is weakness, max of 3. Add a weakness token to the target, up to a limit of 3 per player or enemy. When a player or enemy with 1 or more weakness tokens attacks, each hit in the attack or enemy action deals -1 damage. Then 1 weakness token is removed for area of effect attacks, example area of effect 2 hit, or multi-hit attacks, such as example 1 hit. They only use a single weakness token when it's resolved. Weak versus vulnerable. If a weak target attacks a vulnerable target, the attack is unaffected by both weak and vulnerable. After the attack, remove a weak token from the attacker and remove a vulnerable token from all affected targets. And that is everything you need to know to play the Slay the Spire board game. This is a really fun game. It's fully cooperative, and again, it can be played solo or with up to 3 other players to make a 4-player game. Now for a little bit of wrap-up here and a little bit of discussion about what Slay the Spire is. First, Slay the Spire is a deck-building video game. I first played it on the Switch, and then I played it on the PlayStation because I want trophies, and I love this game. It's available, I believe, on all platforms, PC and console, and it is just a fantastic little game. It's very addicting, simple on the surface, but takes a lot of strategy and planning to get really deep into it, and eventually you really learn the systems and push yourself to reach new goals and stuff. And it is available now. It was on sale for $8 on PlayStation and like $4 or something on Steam or something. Those sales obviously end, and that's not going to be the prices forever. But Slay the Spire is a video game I say is worth purchasing. Lots of hours into this one. And there's actually a second one coming out, I believe sometime this year. I know Slay the Spire 2 is on the way, and also there is a second Slay the Spire tabletop game being created. I believe a Kickstarter is going to be available this year, where you play as the bosses, it looks like. I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying not to spoil anything about it, but the cover makes it look like the bad guys or the player characters. The one important thing I noted is they said it will be compatible with this one. So that is important. Keep an eye on that game, keep an eye on the new video games, or try them out for the first time. Cannot recommend it enough. Slay the Spire is wonderful.